The Vietnam War was a long, costly and divisive conflict that pitted the Communist government of North Vietnam and its principal ally, the Soviet Union, against South Vietnam and its primary ally, the United States. In the game Hearts and Minds Vietnam 1965–1975, the players will direct the forces of the Communist North Vietnam or the capitalist South. The goal of the game is to accumulate political will, doves or hawks, whereby capturing the hearts and minds of the Vietnamese people. The North Vietnamese player, Red, attempts to foment dove points, which represent the American public's growing political opposition to the war. This is primarily driven by inflicting U.S. casualties and through the degradation of the political stability of the South Vietnamese government. The South Vietnamese player, Blue, attempts to accumulate hawk points, which represent the American people's will to sustain the conflict. This is primarily driven through battlefield successes and by maintaining stability within the South Vietnamese government.
Hello everyone, this is Keith from the Solo Gamers Club, and welcome to my channel. Tonight, travel back with me in time to the mid-1960s and to the steamy jungles of Southeast Asia as we play the third edition of Hearts and Minds Vietnam 1965–1975 from Compass Games. In this video I'll begin with a component overview and I'll follow it up with a brief rule summary where I'll describe the game's basic mechanics. Then we'll set up the game for the 1965 scenario, and I'll discuss my revisions to the Solitaire Play Guide, and I'll give you a little bit more information on this in a bit. In this playthrough, I'll be controlling the Allied forces of South Vietnam, while the bot will control the forces of the Communist North. The purpose of this video is to introduce the game to you and give you enough information to decide if this is a title that you might like to have in your collection. Now, the standard game is a two-player game. The rules for that, there are no problems with that whatsoever. However, when you attempt to use the solo guide that is provided, there are some problems with it, and I think I've rectified that portion of it. And I'll show you the setup procedure that I use that I believe incorporates all of the errata that has been introduced, and I'm going to try to compact that into this video. Then we're going to play through the 1965 season and probably the 1966 season. I'll give you an example of play, and then you can probably make a pretty good determination if this is a game you might like. The game's components include a mounted map of Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, 175 counters, 80 cards, a rule book, 2 player aid cards, a flowchart card, a solitaire play guide, and 2 dice. The board measures 22 by 34 inches, that's 56 by 86 centimeters, and it depicts a portion of Southeast Asia, including the southern portion of North Vietnam, all of South Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The board is divided into provinces which regulate movement, combat, and political control. South Vietnam is divided into its historic 4 core zones with red lines which divide them from one another. These include the first core, or I Corps, which lies directly south of the demilitarized zone. Second Corps, which includes Vietnam's Central Highlands. The Third Corps, which includes the capital city of Saigon. And the Fourth Corps, which includes the Mekong River Delta. Coastal provinces include all provinces that adjoin the South China Sea or the Gulf of Thailand. Border provinces include those provinces in Cambodia, Laos, and South Vietnam that adjoin a national border. The border provinces of Cambodia and Laos also form the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which is depicted as a black dotted line, running the length of the map. The North Vietnam space represents all of the provinces of North Vietnam, and therefore it has unlimited stacking limits. The brown-bordered provinces represent Vietnam's Central Highlands region and the Montagnard tribal regions. Montagnards were friendly to the south and tended to cooperate with its government. Blue-bordered provinces, with the crossed rifles icon, represent major U.S. bases. Black dots mark the key city locations such as Hue, Da Nang, and Quang Tri, and may be important with the play of certain event cards. The game pieces are divided into units and markers. Units represent fighting forces and are further divided into infantry or assets. Infantry are depicted with crossed rifle symbols, while assets are depicted with an icon matching its support function, meaning artillery, armor, blue water navy, brown water navy, etc. Assets are support units that cannot engage in combat alone. Artillery assets represent concentrations of large caliber field guns, such as the M114 155mm howitzer or the D74 122mm field gun. Tank assets represent armor and armored fighting vehicles such as the M60, the Patton, and the M114 armored fighting vehicle, or the T-55. Tanks may never enter the swampy provinces of 4th Corps. The blue player's tank units arrive as normal reinforcements, while the red player's tank units appear only in special events. The Blue Water Navy represents U.S. and South Vietnamese naval units, such as cruisers and destroyers, that can be used to provide offshore bombardment and are limited to coastal provinces. This asset has a reaction capability. The Air Cav asset represents elements of the 1st Air Cavalry Division and are equipped with a dedicated formation of helicopters. The Air Cav asset may be deployed in any South Vietnamese region and has a reaction capability. The gunboat asset represents the United States naval forces that operated in the Mekong Delta region. They are equipped with swift boats and include U.S. Navy SEAL detachments. Units are denoted by color and a national ensign. Infantry may either be untried or veteran. Veteran units have a higher combat ability. The North's Viet Cong units are unique militia infantry that show a generic VC icon on the front and a variable status on the back, either VC, which would represent a Viet Cong battalion, VC2, which is a reinforced VC formation, probably a regiment, or bad intel. Markers are used to record various pieces of game information, such as victory points, province control, and Republic of Vietnam stability. Finally, bomber units are not combat units, and they may not be attacked. They represent the United States' B-52 heavy bomber forces that were based in Guam and Thailand. The cards include 3 decks, a blue, red, and black deck. The red and blue decks are further divided into response cards, 1969 cards, and campaign cards. The black deck only contains standard event cards and response cards. Each faction's game deck is composed of their own colored decks, along with a portion of the black or neutral cards. Response cards allow a player to play a card if the conditions listed on the card are satisfied. Some response cards can be played during your opponent's turn. Note, during solo play, the response cards are handled differently. The 1969 cards are added to each faction's draw decks during the 1969 season or at the start of specific scenarios. Campaign cards are special year-long missions that can earn substantial victory points. they are handled a bit differently in the solo game. The North has two special campaign cards that are listed as Grand Campaign cards, and they represent the historic Tet Offensive of 1968 and the Easter Offensive of 1972. The victory conditions in Hearts and Minds are very flexible, allowing the player to start and end a game in any year ranging from 1965 to 1972. Special rules allow the campaign to continue past 1972. In my game, I'm going to set up the 1965 scenario, and I'm planning to play through till the 1966 season. If neither side achieves an automatic victory prior to the conclusion of that year, we'll score the game at that time. Victory hinges on the accumulation of political will, measured by hawks or doves. The blue player seeks to accumulate hawk points, which represent the political will to continue the conflict, while the red player seeks to earn dove points in an attempt to pacify the American and South Vietnamese public and their will to continue the conflict. Hawk points are considered to have negative values, while dove points have positive values. When the U.S. earns a hawk point, it is subtracted from the total, while dove points would add to the value of the track. Now I'm going to be playing the 1965 scenario, and we're going to be using the red bot to control the National Liberation Front, which is another name for North Vietnam and their Viet Cong compadres. To begin the setup, we're going to divide all of the cards into their base colors. So we'll have all the cards, red cards in a stack, all the blue cards, and all of the black cards. Then out of each of those stacks, we're going to separate out the black response cards, the red response cards, and the blue response cards. We'll remove the 1969 cards from the red and blue decks as they won't be used during this playthrough. Finally, we're going to separate out the blue campaign cards and the red campaign cards. The red Grand Campaign cards will not be used as a part of this playthrough, so I'm going to put those back in the box. We'll begin by creating our response deck. The black response cards are going to be shuffled, and we're going to give one black response card to the red deck, and the remaining 4 black response cards will be given to the blue deck. Each deck will be then shuffled, and those will total a total of 8 cards, 8 red and 8 blue. So now we have 8 cards in the red response deck and 8 in the blue. I'm going to place the red cards to the right-hand side of the board, which is closest to North Vietnam, and the blue decks will be placed to the south near Saigon. The red campaign cards are going to be shuffled and placed face down next to the board, and these will be added to their draw decks randomly based upon the bot's actions. So we've laid out the 4 campaign cards randomly, and they are placed face down. We don't know which ones are which. The blue player's campaign cards are placed face up near the south part of the board, and those will be introduced into the game whenever we want to do that. Card will be added and shuffled into our draw deck if we choose to want to play a campaign card. The remaining cards are the standard cards divided into black, blue, and red stacks. There are 21 black cards, 15 blue, and 10 red. So out of the 21 black cards, we're going to give 8 of them to the blue deck, moving that up to a total of 23. The remaining 13 black cards will be added to the 10 of the red deck, giving that a total of 23 cards. So both, when we're finished, both blue and red decks will contain 23 cards. So now we've shuffled both the blue and red decks, and these will form our draw decks for the game. I'm going to place the red draw deck beneath our response deck, and I've placed a chip on that to remind me that that is the response deck. We'll place the blue draw deck near the blue response cards, and I've done the same for them, placing a chip on top of the response deck to keep that separate. Now we're going to get out our 1965 campaign sheet, which is located in the standard rulebook, and we're going to create and set up the red and blue forces per the scenario card. I placed all of the Viet Cong units in a draw cup, and as those are partially hidden information, we'll be drawing those from the cup, and it makes it a lot easier than trying to keep them in a stack and organized. So it's a little easier to get it out of a draw cup. In North Vietnam, we're going to place the starting North Vietnamese forces. We have 4 regiments of North Vietnamese veterans. We have 8 regiments of untried NVA and 2 artillery battalions. Next, we're going to place 10 red flagged control markers on 10 different provinces. Those are going to represent North Vietnamese control of those provinces. If a province has a red token on it, it is either VC or NVA controlled. If it has no token on it and it's in South Vietnam, it's considered to be under South Vietnamese control. Further status is a white star, and that indicates that the province is not only controlled, but it's been pacified by U.S. and South Vietnamese forces. So we've designated 10 provinces that are currently under NLF control. In Laos, we placed 2 veteran regiments in Saravan. Those represent the Communist Pathet Lao formations in Laos. Next, we're going to randomly draw 10 Viet Cong formations, and we're going to place those face down in each of the North Vietnamese controlled provinces of South Vietnam. So we've placed 10 VC battalions face down in each of the red flagged provinces. And finally, we're supposed to place 2 additional VC units in red flagged provinces or in Laotian or Cambodian border provinces. A province is always limited to a maximum of 2 VC. I've placed the additional VC forces in one in the south in An Duyen and another in Ninh Thuan. And finally, we set the North Vietnamese stored resource point marker to 2. That completes the North's setup. We'll move on to the setup of the South. The South will also begin with 2 stored resource points, and we'll mark it accordingly. In addition, the game begins in the 1965 scenario with 10 hawk points, so we've marked 10 hawk points on the track. In the province of Thua Thien, which incorporates the city of Hue, U.S. will start with a veteran combat formation and a U.S. artillery formation. South Vietnamese forces, or ARVN forces, will consist of a veteran and an untried regiment. In the province of Quang Nam, which includes the city of Da Nang, we're going to have 1 veteran ARVN, 2 untried ARVN, and the Blue Water Navy support unit. In the province of Binh Dinh in 2nd Corps, we'll begin with a veteran U.S. regiment, an untried regiment of ROK Marines, that's Republic of Korea, and 2 untried regiments of ARVN. Province of Tuy Ha in 2nd Corps will have 3 untried ARVN units and the Air Cavalry formation. Also in 2nd Corps in the province of Darlek, we'll have 4 untried ARVN regiments. Now moving into 3rd Corps in the province of Long Can, which is located to the northeast of Saigon, we'll begin with 4 untried ARVN regiments. Capital of Saigon will be garrisoned by a veteran ARVN unit, an ARVN artillery formation, and 2 untried U.S. regiments. That region also begins the game pacified, so thus we have the blue star marking it as such. Now moving into 4th Corps in the Mekong Delta, we're in the Quien Hoa province, where we have 1 untried U.S. regiment and 3 untried ARVN regiments. Now moving into Laos, in the province of Champasak, we have 3 veteran Laotian regiments ready to move. And finally, the U.S. begins with 1 formation of B-52 bombers stationed in Wake Island. We place that token in the airbase area. All the formations have been placed on the board, and as a part of the 1965 scenario, Blue is allowed to redeploy 5 friendly units, plus his air and naval units, after setup. So we're going to take a look at those options and see what we can do by redeploying our forces for the first turn. Now the stacking limits of the game, with the exception of North Vietnam, is you can have no more than 4 infantry units in a province and an unlimited amount of support units, 1 of each kind: artillery, tank, air cav, or the Blue or Brown Water Navy. The Brown Water Navy would be the unit that operates in 4th Corps, which is the gunboats. Well, beginning with I Corps, 1st Corps, we've got a large formation of NLF units in North Vietnam, and those are going to be either coming into Quang Tri or moving down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So we want to try to guard our forces from being overrun in this area. So I think what we'll probably end up doing is perhaps moving in some extra forces from the south. In Thua Thien, we have 3 regiments there, plus a support artillery. We could bring 1 additional infantry regiment in there. And the same situation with Quang Nam. There's 3 infantry regiments in Quang Nam, plus the Blue Water Navy. So we'll see what we can do to try to bolster those forces. Now, just as in the historical conflict, our morale is sensitive to U.S. combat casualties. So whenever possible, we'd like to use ARVN forces to soak up any losses that we have. So I think it's important to keep ARVN forces combined with U.S. forces so that we're not having the U.S. forces take the brunt of the casualties. That has a direct effect on our political will marker. So I think I'm going to transfer a regiment of untried ARVN infantry from Long Con, and we'll place those in Quang Nam. I think I'll do the same by stripping out a regiment of untried ARVN from Darlak, and we'll place that in Thua Thien. That'll help to solidify those forces up in the dangerous I Corps region. The game is now set. The year is 1965. U.S. Marines of the 3rd Division have landed at Da Nang in response to VC attacks on the air base of Da Nang. And subsequent, U.S. forces have spread across the map, trying to aid the South Vietnamese forces against their VC and NVA opponents. Now this game is predicated on victory points, which is the political will element of the game. I'm going to bring up that victory goals chart on the screen, and we're planning on playing through the 1966 year. So we're going to look at those endgame goal numbers, and in this case, by 1966, if we have a total of -3 or 3 Hawks or more, the U.S. would win the game. However, if it's less than that, it's going to be a North Vietnamese victory. Now there's an auto win here for both sides. If Red ever achieves at an interphase 5 doves or greater, they would automatically win the game. Same for Blue. If we're ever able to achieve -10, which would be 10 Hawks or less, 11 or 12 or more, then the Blue team will win automatically. During each year of the game, each side is going to draw and play 4 cards from their hand of 5 cards. And in the blues case, we will decide on the actions as we would in a standard two-player game. However, the red team is going to be controlled by the bot, and the bot has very specific instructions on how those cards are to be used based on die rolls. I'll bring up the red bot sheet on the screen, and this is what we're going to use to control the red forces. An important concept in using these bots is what's known as a bot decision. Whenever it's required for us to make a decision, it'll say make a bot decision, and we're going to roll a six-sided die, and that will give us a yes or no response. If the die roll is even, that's considered to be a yes response. If it's odd, it's considered to be no. If a decision requires more than two choices, we're going to assign numbers to those choices and roll a d6 until one of the assigned numbers appears, and that will be the basis of how that bot is going to be controlled. We begin play by drawing 5 cards, leaving them face down from the red deck, and this is going to form the red player's draw deck for the first turn. We've done the same for the blue player, except our cards are going to be face up. Now you'll notice on these cards there is a number in the upper left-hand corner. That is the number of resource points that the card is worth. And then below that is the event that relates to that card. Now in this game, it's not a choice between the resource points or the event. In most cases in this game, the event can be purchased for a certain resource point cost out of the amount of resource points that the card gives you. So for as an example, we have this Nguyen Van Thieu card, and that gives us 5 resource points, and we can purchase the event for 2 resources. And it says here, there will be no coup this year. Now it's a very important card for us. South Vietnamese coups are extremely damaging to the ability of us to win the game. It creates quite a bit of havoc for the South Vietnamese team, and we want to try to prevent that if at all possible. The NLF forces have the initiative, and they will be going first. Now to control, I should explain one thing about this. If this is definitely a playthrough using the solitaire rules. If you're going to be playing this game as a standard 2-player game, a lot of these rules will not apply. As an example, in the bot, it might allow you the ability to, where it says to move and make an attack by spending 1 resource point. Now normally each of those actions costs a resource point. You would pay 1 resource point to move a formation and another resource point to commence the attack. So the bot is set up where it will deviate from the standard rules in how the bot operates. And it's understandable, the bot doesn't have a brain, so the designer is attempting to make the bot more competitive by including certain actions that wouldn't be allowed during a standard 2-player game. So to begin a turn for the bot, we're going to turn over 2 cards, and we're going to play the card with the highest resource value. So we've drawn 2 cards. The first one was Over the Fence, has an RP value of 4. The second one is Uncle Ho, and that has a value of 5. So we'll be playing the 5 card. If the cards were tied, we would be playing the second card. In this case, the Over the Fence card is going to be inverted. We'll leave that out. We'll be playing the Uncle Ho card, and I use chips to determine the number of resource points that I have left. As I spend them, I remove them from the stack. So we'll begin the NLF's turn by consulting the red bot chart. I'll bring that up on the screen. At the top of the chart, it says if a campaign card is drawn, the text automatically takes effect. Now, campaign cards are not going to be introduced in the 1965 year. The rules prohibit that. They can possibly be added to the draw decks in 1966 and thereafter. It says if North Vietnam contains any units, the first resource point is always spent to move these units. Roll a die. We're going to roll a die, and on an even or odd result, we will follow the instructions given. So we'll roll a die and find out what the bot is going to do. Result is a 3. That's odd, and it says spend 1 resource point to move all units from North Vietnam down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Roll for individual units to determine how many provinces each will travel along the trail. If movement would cause overstacking, units travel an additional province. If no units are located in North Vietnam, then go to number 1. Well, we do have units in North Vietnam, so we're going to make a roll for each of those units, and then they're going to individually move down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And that's the North's easiest way to infiltrate the South. The other option is to go through, South Vietnam, but then you've got units that'll be potentially blocking you. So the Ho Chi Minh Trail is the fastest way that they can get units south and near their target of Saigon, which is the capital. So we're going to make a few rolls, and I will show you how those move, and then afterwards I'll take care of that off screen and show you the results. So we'll make a first move here with an veteran NVA regiment. Roll is a 2, so it's going to move 2 provinces, 1 and 2. And I'll do another one. It's a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that ended up in Mando Calri. All right, I'm going to make these moves off camera, and I'll show you the results. So we've spent 1 resource point, and we'll deduct that from our total. And all of these North Vietnamese Army units from North Vietnam have moved down the trail. We've got 3 regiments in Mandol Kelri, 2 regiments and an artillery in Ratakanari, 1 artillery regiment in Atapu, 3 regiments in Jikong, 1 regiment in Saravan, and 3 regiments in Savanakat. And that is the extent of their first action. We're going to make a die roll and consult number 1 on the chart and repeat the process. Roll is even, and it says spend 1 resource point to bank a stored resource point, then conduct a free VC raid against the weakest random US or ARVN force in South Vietnam within reach. Use a bot decision for the destination. Once the raid is complete, conduct a free attack or move in Cambodia or Laos. All right. So the first part of that action instructed us to spend 1 RP and to bank a stored resource point for the North. So we'll move them up to 3. Now, stored resource points are very important. That allows you to prevent the collapse of an ally. The South can use them to help to prevent a coup in the South. And they also can be used for military operations. You're able to spend 1 of those to augment the amount of resources you get from playing your card. Now, the other portion of that bot even result was to conduct a free VC raid against the weakest random US or ARVN force in South Vietnam within reach. Now, the VC forces in the solo game operate slightly different from the 2-player game. In a 2-player game, the VC units have a movement capability of 1. Now, in the solo game, the VC units only move as a result of evading or retreating. So wherever the VC units are, a raid is going to be conducted in an adjacent province to that location. Now, that bot chart results said that we're supposed to conduct a free VC raid against the weakest random US or ARVN force in South Vietnam within reach. So to be within reach of a VC, you have to be within 1 province in the solo rules. The weakest province that they are able to reach, I've determined, is in Darlak. There are a total of 3 untried ARVN regiments. Now, a raid happens, the unit doesn't actually move in there. It's considered to be conducting the raid, moving across the border of the province, and then the units would retreat back to where they were. And we're going to utilize our ambush and raid chart to determine the results. So I'm going to have the VC force in Quang Duc launch a raid against the ARVN forces in Darlak. So we're going to roll a d6 and we're going to consult the ambush and raid table. Now, the VC units are only revealed when they're required to be revealed. In this case, we have to reveal the unit to find out whether it is a VC battalion, regiment, or if it is a intel, a bad intel token. We'll see what we've got here. And it is. It's a bad intel token. Now, when those come up, we need to roll on a special chart called the Bush table. If this was a standard VC regiment or reinforced unit, we would make a die roll and consult the chart for that unit. But this is bad intel, and in the solo rules, we're supposed to make a roll on this Bush events table. We're going to roll 2 dice, and they'll be read as a D66. So we'll be rolling the red die will control the tens, and the blue die will control the singles. So let's make the roll. And we've rolled 61. And if we look at our chart, 61 is Saigon recalls ARVN units to protect against a possible coup. If ARVN units are in this province, Blue must pick them up and put them next to the map. He deploys them during the next reinforcements phase. So, in this case, the 3 untried ARVN units are going to be placed in the reinforcement area on the track, and we will get those in 1966 during the reinforcement phase. All right, so that was actually a good token for the North Vietnamese. That token will be placed back into the VC pool in the cup, and then we'll give that a shuffle. And that is their first operation. Now we're going to move on to number 2, and we're going to do the same thing and roll a die and look for odd or even to see what the bot's next action is. The result is odd, and that reads, spend 1 RP to conduct an attack in Cambodia or Laos, bot decision for target. If the odds would be equal or in the bot's favor, if the casualties caused in the attack are equal or in the bot's favor, spend another RP to reinforce or continue the attack. Otherwise, move on to 3. Well, as a part of that previous bot action, it said that we were also able to conduct a raid or movement in Cambodia or Laos. At the beginning of the game, Cambodia is neutral. So only Laos is active. Cambodia would not come into the game until 1969. But the bot doesn't want to make attacks that would be considered to be a disadvantage to them. So let's take a look in Laos real quick. In Laos, the communists have 2 veteran units in Saravan. In the adjacent province of Champasak, we have 3 Laotian regiments that are controlled by the blue player. So in this case, the red player would not want to launch an attack. It would be at a disadvantage to them. So that's why we didn't move that during that last segment. In this segment, the same thing will happen. There's no advantage for them to launch the attack, so we'll move on to number 3 in the chart and make the roll again. And here's the North's roll. In this case, it is odd, and that instructs us to spend 1 RP to attempt political control in 1 or 2 provinces where the odds of success are the most likely. If necessary, use a bot decision. If RPs remain, go on to number 4. All right. Now the politics of the game is as follows. The red player would control all South Vietnamese provinces that have red flags. The blue player would control all of the rest, including those with blue flags. No one can control Laotian or Cambodian provinces. You can spend 1 resource point to buy a PC change action, which lets you try to take control of a South Vietnamese province. At least 1 friendly unit and no enemy units must be present. Bombers do not count. An ARVN or VC can automatically succeed, and that would either allow the VC player to place a red token there, or the blue player could remove a VC token. If no VC or ARVN units are present, it's done by a die roll. So if there were US or NVN Army units there, they would have to make a roll, And if the number of the result is less than or equal to the number of units in the province, including all assets and air and naval assets, you would be successful. If it fails, you can buy another attempt for 1 RP. Now in this case, we have no units in a province that we don't already control other than those forces that are on the north. So we're going to have to continue on with the bot and move on to step 4 and make another roll. Now the bot has 3 resource points remaining, so we're going to move on to step 4 and make a roll. Roll is even, and it says to spend 1 resource point to activate a province containing the most bot units. Move these to the nearest coastal province with the fewest blue units. If necessary, use a bot decision to determine the attacking force and the target province. If RPs remain, we would move on to step 5. So we're going to spend one of their remaining 3 resource points, and we're going to try to find the elements that meet those requirements. So we want to activate a province that contains the most bot units, and that's the most number of units, not by combat strength, but by the number of units. Now, looking at the board, we have several provinces that contain 3 units. We've got one in Mandalkari and another 3 up in Savannah-Ket. So those would be the most likely of the 2 provinces that we would have to determine. This province has 2 units, but with 1 supporting unit. So I guess that would qualify as well, because it says activate a province containing the most bot units. So I guess all 3 of these, including Ratakiri, would be included. So we're going to make a bot roll, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that will determine which force we're going to attempt to move. Result is a 3, so that's going to be the group in Ratanakiri. That'll be 2 regiments with an artillery unit. So that's what we're going to attempt to move, and the mission is to move to a coastal province. The nearest coastal province with the fewest blue units. Well, the fewest blue units would be Tuehua, so I think that's where we're going to try to move. Now the counters, the left side of the counter is the attack strength, and the right side of the counter is its movement. So they're going to move up to 4 movement points, and you spend 1 for each province that you move in. If the province contains a veteran unit, you have to spend an additional point. Moving into a province with enemy units does not cause combat. So they're going to move into Tuehua. So 1, 2, and 3. They enter the province. Now some of the bot responses allow them to launch an attack using the same resource point. In this case, it does not. It simply says to spend 1 RP to activate a province containing the most bot units, and we move them to the nearest coastal province with the fewest blue units. And we've done that. We're going to move on now to step 5, and we're going to make another roll and see what happens. And here's the roll. The result is even, and it says spend all remaining RPs to activate units in the South Vietnamese province in which the bot is strongest. All activated units will move toward, and if possible, attack the nearest, most weakly defended blue base. If SRPs are available, spend 1 to conduct the attack. If more than 1 province or base qualifies, we'll use a bot decision to decide. The attack must give the bot greater odds, or at worst, even odds, before reactive units arrive. If this is not possible, go to number 6. All right. Well, the strongest bot formation that is on the board is in Mandalkiri. That has a total of 5 strength points. So they're going to move and attempt to launch an attack on the weakest coastal province that we can find. I should say the weakest base, not coastal. In this case, it appears to be that the weakest one that we can enter. Now there's stacking limits. We cannot bring in all of those units into this province because there's already 2 there. But we could move into Bin Din, and I think that's what they'll try to do. The defenders have 2, 3, 4, 5, and the attackers would have a total of 5 as well. So they're going to move in 1 and 2 movement points. They're going to spend one of their RPs that they have stored, and it says to launch an attack. So we're going to go through the attack sequence. Now I like to use dice to record the strength of the units. So when I'm calculating the winner and loser, it makes it easier. We know we have a total of 5 red units, so I like to put one of these smaller red dice to account for their battle strength. And we'll do the same for the blue and green units. They have a total strength of 5. What's going to happen is each of us is going to roll a combat die, and we'll add that to the value, and we'll look up on our battle results table using the red and blue columns to determine the results of the combat. So let's make the roll. We'll see what happens. All right, we're going to add these figures to those totals, and then checking on the chart will determine the battle results. First, we'll take care of the attacking forces. They have a total strength of 8, so we're going to look on the red column of the battle table, and we'll look for what 8 is. And cross-referencing that to the 7 to 10 range, the result is 1. So 1 enemy token has to be eliminated. And we're going to eliminate one of the untried Arvin units. That will be sent to the body count box. The body count box and the dead pool are areas where eliminated forces are stored. The body count box will store units that have been destroyed in the current turn. After this turn is done, any units in the body count box would be moved into the dead pool, and that is basically our replacement force pool. All right, now we're going to check the results of the blue player. He has a total value of 11. Looking on the blue column, going down to 11, we get a battle result of 2. So the North Vietnamese will have to eliminate 2 units. And they'll have no choice but eliminating a veteran and an untried unit. Those will also go into the body count box. Now, following a combat, if you have any untried units, you can attempt to promote them. And this is called battlefield promotions. Units are promoted in battles, ambushes, and some raids. All other eliminations do not cause promotions, including bombing missions and evasion failures. Any infantry units that were in the battle groups and present when the battle dice are rolled are eligible for promotion. Flip over 1 untried infantry to the veteran side, owning player's choice, for every opposing unit that fought in the battle. Count enemy units that were eliminated as well. So that is what we're going to do. In this case, there were 3 North Vietnamese units that started the battle, so we would be able to promote up to 3 of our units. Now we have 2 untried units, an untried Rock Marines and an untried Arvin unit, so both of them are going to get promoted. The same would apply to the North Vietnamese forces. Unfortunately, theirs is already a veteran unit, so they won't gain any battlefield promotions. Now, prior to the battle, we could have attempted to evade the combat if we chose. We would have made a roll on the evasion table, and that would have told us the number of units, if any, that could have conducted a retreat. In this case, because the odds were even, I chose not to want to do that, so we accepted the combat. Now, the forces will remain where they are. There is no retreat in post-combat. Once the combat is finished, the units remain in position where they are. Now, we've used up all of the resource points that the Uncle Ho card gave us, so we place that into the discard pile. So the Uncle Ho card that we played that gave us 5 resource points is placed in the discard pile, and that concludes North Vietnam's first turn. We'll move on now to the U.S. and Arvin forces, where we're going to be selecting a card from our 5 and playing that for its resource value. And now it's the U.S. turn. We're going to select one of our 5 cards and play that for its resource value. In this case, I want to try to get a jump on the NLF forces. I'm going to play the Nguyen Van Thieu card. He was the Republic of Vietnam's president from 1967 to 1975. Now it has an event on here. It says we can purchase that event at a cost of 2 resource points out of the 5 that we get. So we'll be getting 5 resource points. I'll mark those with the chips. And it says that we can spend the 2 there to, there will be no coup this year. Now a coup happens when we have heavy South Vietnamese army losses and we don't have a corresponding number of pacified provinces. So if we can prevent coups, it is definitely to our advantage. So I'm going to spend the 2 points, and we're going to play that Nguyen Van Thieu card for its event. It says here to place the card near the body count box as a reminder. So we'll do that. Now we already have several forces in the body count box. I'm going to place that card near the body count box, and then that will be a reminder to us that we don't have to worry about a coup this year, which is great. Now we have 3 resource points left to spend. And looking at the chart, we can find out what those actions are. So we still have 3 resource points left to spend. I'm going to bring up the abbreviated sequence of play, and under number 3, card play, it'll tell us the options that we have. As the blue player, we could conduct a bombing mission, which costs us 0 resource points. And as you saw earlier, we actually purchased the event printed on the card for 2 resource points, and that was that Nguyen Van Thieu card. We can also mobilize all friendly units in one province for a cost of 1 resource point. That would allow us to move those units. Or we can conduct a battle in one province, which we have forces engaged in the Binh Dinh province. That would cost 1 resource point. We can also attempt to change the political control of a province for 1 resource point. And as blue, we could attempt to pacify a province. Now, in order to pacify a province, we have to have at least 1 U.S. unit in that region. The Republic of Korea or the international forces won't count. And that has to be done with that die roll. We're going to roll a die and compare that to the number of forces in that province, and if we're successful, we can pacify the province. The province must be empty of enemy forces. And finally, we can save unused resource points to the stockpile, which is always important. Now, our bombers are limited to only being able to strike inside of South Vietnam. We cannot make strikes in North Vietnam, Laos, or Cambodia unless an event allows us to do so. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with, for 0 resource points, we're going to commit our B-52 forces and make a strike on the enemy forces in Tuy Hoa province. What will happen here, we have a total of 3 enemy units there, and we will make a die roll and index the number of units in the region with the die roll, and that will tell us the number of casualties that the bomb strike will inflict. In this case, there's a total of 3 units in the province. I'll bring up that bomber ground attack chart on the screen. There's 3 units in the province, so on a roll of 1, 2, or 3, we're going to be successful. Here's the roll. Roll is a 1, and that is going to eliminate 1 unit. And they're going to take one of their untried infantry units that'll be placed in the body count box. Then we flip our bomber unit over to show that it has performed its strike. And any units moving through that province, enemy units, will have to spend an extra movement point to move through that province. That token at the end of the round will be returned to the airbase and it will be unfueled. Now we still have 3 resource points available, and I'm going to spend 1 of those to activate our forces in Binh Dinh province, and we're going to attempt to attack those NVN veteran units, the veteran unit that is in that province. Now the Solobot rules indicate that whenever a unit is by itself, it is going to attempt to evade the combat if possible. So I'll bring up the evasion table, and if you examine that table, we look up what force is attempting to evade. In this case, it's 1 unit, so that'll be the row that we're going to use. And then we'll roll a die, and that will be the column that will resolve that evasion. Here's the roll. Roll is a 4. So 1 unit on a 4 is E, success. The group may evade. Now that North Vietnamese Army unit is going to attempt to evade, and it wants to go to a safe province, and that would be any province that is of NVN control or on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So we're going to move that, I think, to this region here in Pleiku. Now, we didn't actually launch the attack, so we get that resource point back. We attempted to make the attack, and the enemy forces scattered. So we don't have to actually pay for that attack. That's the beauty of that. Now, the whole game is predicated on that political control, so that is going to be important to us. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to attempt to move some units into an enemy province and try to kick them out and try to convert that province to friendly control. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a resource point, and we're going to activate the forces in Binh Dinh province. And they're going to move into Pleiku. We're going to follow those North Vietnamese Army units in there. That costs 1 point. Now that does not give us the ability to attack it, so we have to spend another point to attack. And I think that's what we're going to do. Now, as we moved into the province of Pleiku, there was an existing Viet Cong unit there. And the solo rules indicate that we have to make a die roll to see a bot decision to see whether that VC unit is going to attempt to ambush us as we move into Pleiku. On an even result, it'll be a yes. On a no result, it will be, on an odd result, it'll be no. The result is even. So we're going to reveal that VC unit and consult the ambush raid table. That is revealed to be a bad intel token. So instead, we're going to be consulting that Bush events table, and we'll be making a roll on that chart. Be rolling 2 dice, and they'll be read as the red and blue in that order. Okay, here is the roll. And the result is a 54. So we'll read event 54 in the chart. That says, U.S. congressmen visit this province on a fact-finding tour. Are they happy? Blue may spend RPs before he rolls 1 die. Each spent RP adds 2 to the result. Add 1 dove if the die roll result is less than 6. This is not an action, so he may spend any stockpile RPs he has. All right, well, we're going to think about that. Well, this is involving our political control, so I think we are going to spend an RP to try to get the dice roll modifier. So I'm going to spend an additional RP. That's going to give us a +2 modifier to the roll, and we need to try to get a total of 6 or greater. Otherwise, we're going to lose 1 point of political control. Here is the roll. Roll is a 4, and we've added 2. We add 2 to the roll for the resource point that we added before the roll, and that gets us a total of 6. And it says here that if there was any result less than 6, we would lose a political control point, or I should say a political point, and that would have been a dove, which is a positive value. Our hawks would have went down from -10 to -9, but in this case we've avoided that, so that's great. The bad intel token is placed into the VC cup, and we'll randomize that. And now we still have 1 resource point remaining, plus we can spend a stored resource point if we choose. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to spend the resource point, and we're going to call for an attack in Pleiku. Now the bot is going to attempt to evade again. So we'll make a roll on the evasion table. This is 1 unit, and the roll is a 6. And that is an E. It's going to evade. So it will evade to a control province, and it'll move into Khantum. But now we have basically driven out the VC and NVN forces out of Pleiku. So I'm going to spend one of our special resource points, or I should say our stored resource points, and we're going to attempt to do a political change in Pleiku. So we're going to move the US SRP marker down from 2 to 1, and we're going to use that point to attempt a political change. Now, as the force contains an Arvin unit, we're automatically successful, so we're able to remove that North Vietnamese control from Pleiku, and that automatically becomes South Vietnamese controlled territory. Now in the future, if we choose to want to attempt to pacify that region, we do have a US unit available, and that would allow us for 1 resource point to attempt to pacify that region. All right, that is all of the resource points that are available to the Allied player. We'll move back to the Red player. So the Red player is going to play that card that was not played the last time, and that will be augmented with another card from our starting hand of 5. And we'll compare those. In this case, we've got Over the Fence, and we got to get out of this place. So this has the higher value. That card will be played. The 3 value card will be turned over and saved for the next turn. This is going to offer the North Vietnamese player a total of 4 resource points, and we'll give them the 4 points that they can spend during the turn. The first step consulting the bot chart is to examine North Vietnam. Now there are no units contained in North Vietnam, so it says to move on to step 1 and roll a die, and that's what we're going to do. So the red player is going to make a roll, and we'll see if it's odd or even. In this case it is odd, and that instructs us to spend 1 RP to move the largest bot unit concentration to attack the weakest concentration within reach. If necessary, use a bot decision to choose the attacking force and the target. All right. Well, the largest bot force is based not on combat, but on the number of units in the area. And the largest one we have is 3 of these untried NVA regiments in Savannah Ket. So that will be our active force that we'll be using. We're going to spend 1 RP to move them. And now they are going to move to the smallest, I should say the weakest, random US or Arvin force. Is that correct? Hang on 1 second. Spend largest unit concentration to attack the weakest blue concentration of units within reach. So the weakest. Now they would have a total of 4 movement points. This force has a total of 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. This force is 2, 3, 4, 5 in Quang Nam. And that's really the only forces that can be reached. So, and Quang Nam also has this Blue Water Navy unit that's there. Actually, that's the wrong token. The Blue Water Navy token is, I'm going to change that over. This is actually the gunboat token. There we go, that's better. All right, so that force actually consists of 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. This force is 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. So this is the smallest force. So they're going to move using their movement points 1, 2, and 3. And they're going to move into Quang Nam province, and they're going to conduct an attack. So I've placed our counting dice out here. We have 3 for the 3 NVA units and 7 for our allied units. Now, one thing I forgot to show in that previous combat that we had in Tuy Hoa was we have to use our response cards. Now what happens, in the last battle I did check the cards and they didn't produce any combat results. But if we draw a card and it is able to influence the battle, it is played. So we'll do that here, and we'll draw one from the US deck, and that is the platoon card. It says play after a battle round with allied survivors. Red loses 1 unit, you lose 1 unit on a d6 roll of 1 to 3. You may repeat the process provided you have survivors. Red may try evasion after each roll. Okay, so that is a valid card. Now we'll draw one for the North Vietnamese forces. And that card is Apocalypse Now. That says play in the interface. So that card won't be able to influence the battle. So that one will go back into the deck and will be shuffled again into their deck and could be drawn again in the future. And once again, those response cards are used differently in the solo game as they are opposed to the two-player game. In a two-player game, the response cards would be a part of your hand that you could play at any time you chose. All right, so we're going to resolve the battle now. We have a strength of 3 attacking 7, and then that platoon card might be able to be used in the resolution. Okay, here is the roll. All right, it's a 3 and a 1. So we have a total force here now of 4 combat value for the North Vietnamese. Checking the battle table, looking on the column of red, intersecting that with 1 to 5, we have no value. So they have inflicted no casualties on the South. South has rolled a total of 10. And reading the blue column on the 10 is 1R. It says that in our result, the target must either lose 1 resource point or SRP, or eliminate 1 additional unit. All right, so in this case, the 1 eliminates 1 of the units. That goes to the body count box. Then they have a decision to make. They have to decide whether or not they're going to spend 1 of their 3 RPs to try to preserve the unit or let it go. And if you examine the bot rules, it says that the North will not spend stored resource points to preserve a unit, where the South always will. So in this case, I think what we'll do, we have regular resource points available. We'll make a bot roll and let that determine if they're going to spend 1 of their points to preserve that unit. The result is odd, and that's a no. So that means that that other unit will be destroyed, placed into the body count box. That was a terrible attack for the North. It says here, for the platoon card, play after the battle round with allied survivors. Red loses 1 unit. You lose 1 unit on a d6 roll of 1 to 3. Well, that unit is gone. It was a complete suicidal attack on Da Nang. Now we're going to roll a die and find out if we have to lose a unit in the process. Rolls a 4, and we don't. So this platoon card will be placed back into the response deck for the allies and can come up again in the future. Now this entire force was eliminated. Normally you're allowed to, after a battle is resolved, the defender in the normal game can reinforce with units from adjacent provinces. Now in the solo game, both sides can reinforce. But in order to reinforce, you have to have units present. So the North has been wiped out. They cannot reinforce that, but we could. And that would allow us to move some units in from an adjoining province. We're not going to do that, as we have a full amount of units in Quang Nam. There's a total of 4 there, and that's the stacking limit. So that is the end of that North Vietnamese phase, and they're going to continue on, and they're going to roll a die and find out what the next step is for them to do. So we're going to consult number 2 on the chart, and we'll make a bot roll. And that's an even result. It says buy and conduct the event printed on the card. If RPs remain, go to number 3. Well, the event on their card, they were playing the over the fence card, and that is a neutral card. And that says, event not playable if the Secret War or Campaign X is currently in play. Well, none of those are, so it could be played. And this over the fence card says crossing into Laos or Cambodia. Cost is 1. At the end of your turn, deploy untried any friendly CA or LA units from the body count box to anywhere in their home countries. Well, there aren't any there, so the bot would not do that. It will not play that card because it really has no event effect to it. So we're going to move on to step number 4, and we'll make a roll and see what the bot will do. That's an odd result. That says spend all RPs to move all NVA units outside of North Vietnam south along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, as well as any units already located on the trail. Roll a die for each force to see how many provinces each will travel south along the trail. Should a move cause overstacking or a force move more than 2 provinces off the end of the trail, it will instead move into an adjacent South Vietnamese province. Use bot decision to determine destination if necessary. So they're going to spend all their remaining resource points and they're going to make those moves on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, moving their forces farther south. And there's quite a concentration of units along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and we're going to make the rolls then and move them down the number of provinces rolled. We'll start with this NVA artillery unit. Roll is a 6, it's going to move 6 provinces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's as far as it goes. It would need to have more than 2 points in order to pop out into South Vietnamese territory. It doesn't have that. So we'll continue on. This untried unit will move. That's 2. Next untried is 3. 1, 2, 3. And we have a veteran unit there. That's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's going to go into the parrot's beak. We have a veteran unit that rolls 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, that is the extent of the North Vietnamese turn. That card will be placed into their discard pile, and the Allied player will be up, and he's going to select a card to play. Now you remember that during the last turn we used this bomber, the B-52 bombers. Those remain on the board until the start of their next turn, and then it is returned to the airbase from which it came, and it remains in an unfueled state. Occasionally there's cards that will refuel those bombers that are at the airbase, and they can be used again in a subsequent turn of the same year. But for all intents and purposes, that bomber unit is spent for the 1965 season. And these are the selection of cards that we have available to us. I think I'm going to play the Tunnel Rats card. That's going to give us a total of 4 resource points that we can use during the turn. Now I'm going to begin the turn by spending a resource point, and we're going to activate the forces in Quang Nam. And they're able to conduct a movement. Now these are Arvin forces. Now they move slightly differently. They have 6 movement points, but the Arvin were heavily infiltrated by the VC and North Vietnamese Army forces. So occasionally those commanders weren't the most motivated, let's put it that way. So what happens in this case is we're going to declare where those forces are going to move, and we're going to roll a die, and that's the total number of movement points that those forces will be able to actually move. Now we'll be moving 2 provinces, so we want to move this entire force, the veteran and the untried units, along with the Blue Water Navy. When that is in a province, it is activated along with the other forces. So we're going to move that force to Quang Tri, and I'm going to attempt to engage that VC unit or force it out, and then we're going to attempt to political change in that area. So we're going to make the move, the proposed move, to move to Quang Tri, and the Blue Water Navy will give us gunfire support. Now we're going to have to make a roll and see if the Arvin forces indeed have managed to make that move. Now we're going to need a result of 2 or greater to move the 2 provinces. And they did. They rolled a 2, so they've made it there. Now the VC force has to make a roll to determine whether it is going to ambush the forces moving into Quang Tri. And we'll do a regular bot check. It's an odd result, so it will not attempt to ambush the forces. So now we've spent our 1 resource point, and now we're going to launch an attack there. This will be our 2nd resource point. And we're going to attempt to engage those VC forces. Now the VC will always attempt to evade. So they're going to make an evasion roll. We have to reveal what kind of force it is. And again, it's a bad intel token. So in this case, force is going to be spent. That is gone. And we're going to make a roll on that bad intel chart. The token will be placed into the VC cup. And we're going to make a roll on the Bush events table. And we're going to read that as red and blue, 10s and singles. The result is 34. Looking at the chart, 34 is the Allies expect a communist buildup here. If on the map, blue must put the air cav in this province. All right, so we're going to move the air cavalry unit, which is currently located in Tuai Hua, and that'll be moved to Quang Tri. That disregards its normal movement ability. You do what the card says, or what the event says. And now we're going to spend another resource point, and we're going to attempt to change the politics of Quang Tri province. And since we've got Arvan forces there, the attempt is automatic, and we have successfully converted Quang Tri province back to South Vietnamese control. Now we have one resource point left, and I'm going to attempt to do some political change in Pleiku province. We have a U.S. unit and a ROC, Republic of Korea unit, and a veteran Arvan unit. Now in order to change this over and make this a pacified province, there has to be no enemy units there. There has to be a U.S. unit present. And then we total up the total number of units that are in that area, and we're going to make a die roll. And if the result is equal to or less than the roll, we are successful. So in this case, we have a total number of 3 units in the province, and if we can make a die roll of 3 or less, we will be successful. Here's the roll. Result is a 5, so we have failed in that attempt. That is all of our resource points. Now we could spend one of our stored resource points to attempt that, but we still have 2 more cards to play during the turn. So we're going to discard that Tunnel Rats card, and that will end the U.S. turn. You can see what we're trying to do here, and it's basically intermittent combat with the attempt of removing the enemy forces so that we can control those regions of South Vietnam. Incidentally, I should note that during the interphase, when we finish the year, we will conduct an interphase turn, and then these provinces that are marked with the yellow star on the red back, the VC and NVA controlled provinces, will have a direct effect on our political points that we have. So we want to try to remove those, and if possible, attempt to place pacification markers, which is what we tried to do in Pleiku province here. All right, we're going to move back to the North Vietnamese for the 3rd card. So the North is going to flip over that card that they had played from the last turn and one of their other unrevealed cards, and they're going to be playing the Pentagon Papers. That has a value of 4. This card will be inverted, and they're going to have a total of 4 resource points that they'll be able to spend during this action phase. We'll mark them with 4 tokens. All right, there are no NVN troops in North Vietnam, so we are going to make a bot roll using number 1, and we'll determine what the red player will do. As you can see, the bot does a pretty good job of directing the forces, but I think if I end up bringing this for a full playthrough in the future, I'm going to probably kick up that red bot actions a little bit. I think there's some improvements we could make. Number 1 is, like as we had that combat in Quang Nam, a red player probably wouldn't have authorized that with the game situation in hand. We were out, the North Vietnamese were outnumbered 3-7. So what I probably would do is include in that description of the bot that if you can attain odds of 1-to-1 or greater. If not, move the forces to a vacant province and attempt pacification or attempt political control or something to that effect. But I think the bot does a pretty good job, but I think we could be improved with a few extra pieces of information that would help to protect the red player from making, not great decisions. All right, so we're going to make the roll, and we'll see odd or even what they're going to do. Roll is odd, and it says spend an RP to move the largest bot unit concentration to attack the weakest blue concentration within reach. If necessary, use a bot decision to choose the attacking force and the target. All right. Well, unfortunately, all of the North's units are scattered. There's all single unit concentrations around. So I'm going to make a roll, and we'll find out which one is going to attempt the move, and we'll have it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll see. And then, well, actually, there is one here. There is a bot unit here with 2 units in Tui Hua. So I think we will try to use that force. And that we're looking for the smallest concentration within range. This has a force of 3. And that is larger. And I don't think there are any forces that are anywhere less than 3. So they're going to make that attack there, I believe. That's what they'll do. So the North is going to attempt to attack at Tui Hua, and that has a total value of 3. We're going to spend one of their resource points to launch the attack. That'll give them a value of 3, and the Arvin forces are also at 3. All right, now we're going to draw a random response card for each side and see what we get. The Arvin response card is Search and Destroy. Play in one battle before the battle dice are rolled. Roll your battle dice and apply the results before Red adds his factors and rolls his dice. If played in the same battle as Da Kong, discard this card with no effect. Incidentally, we do disregard in the solo play where it says draw a card. You don't draw an additional card. In the 2-player game, you do that. You would play the card for its effect and then follow the rules that are stated where it says draw a card. You get another one to replace it. So we're going to draw a card for the Vietnamese player, and he gets a limited war. Play after blue completes his last turn of the year. Play one more red turn with 2 RPs. Do not score for a zone campaign this turn. Well, that one won't apply, so that will go back to the red response deck. I'll shuffle that up, and we'll play this out with the situation at hand. So in this case, for this Search and Destroy card, the allies are going to resolve their attack first and the combat results. Then the North Vietnamese player will do his roll. So right now, they're going to be making the attack roll. They have 3 for combat strength, and we'll make the roll. He rolled a 1. That's a total of 4, so checking 4 on the blue is no result. All right, now the North Vietnamese player will roll. He rolled a 1, and that is 4 on red is no result. So that resulted in no exchange of combat losses on either side. We'll play that, place that response card back in the deck and shuffle that up. And now we're going to make a roll to find out what the next action for the North Vietnamese player will be. All right, we're going to look at number 2 and make the roll. This is an odd roll. It says spend 1 RP to conduct an attack in Cambodia or Laos. Well, they don't have an advantage there, and it says that any attacks in Laos or Cambodia have to be with at least equal odds, and they can't achieve that. So we're going to pass on that and move on to number 3. That's one of the areas I think that we could improve in the bot decision making. Is an example would be like that. What I would probably include in there is if you can't achieve 1-to-1 odds, move a force to attempt a political change or something to that effect. But we'll worry about that in the future. Okay, here is number 3 on the roll. And we have an even number. It says spend an RP to activate 2 provinces along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Units in each province move as separate groups, first into empty South Vietnamese provinces, or if none are available, into the nearest provinces containing other friendly units. Units that would overstack remain in place. If necessary, use a bot decision for the destinations. Okay, let's take a look at our forces on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Well, all of the units on the Ho Chi Minh Trail are single units. So I guess we will just assign numbers and see which ones will move in. Now, we won't use the artillery because that can't really attack by itself. So we'll assign it 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll make 2 rolls there and find out which ones are going to move. Rolls a 6, so we'll re-roll that until we get a 1 through 4. A 5, a 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this force is going to move into a vacant province, and that's what it will do. So we'll have to decide on which province it's going to move into. And it has a range of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It could move that far. And, well, it's kind of hard to decide which. I guess they would probably want to take provinces with cities. That would be the most important to them. Or U.S. base location. So I think it would probably move to Bin Din. So it'll move 1, 2, 3. That'll be the first one. We'll make another roll now. 1, 2, 3. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that'll be that unit, and that's going to move into a vacant South Vietnamese province within range. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I think it would move into Dar Lac. Ban Mi Thuot is an important location, so it has moved into those locations for the moment. The North Vietnamese have 2 resource points left, so we'll move on now to number 4, and we'll make a roll. Roll is odd, and that says spend all RPs to move all NVA units outside of North Vietnam along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, as well as units located on the trail. Roll a die for each to see how far they will travel south. Should a move cause overstacking or a force to move more than 2 provinces off the end of the trail, it will instead move into an adjacent SVN province. Okay. All right, we'll start with this artillery unit that is in Campat. And if it can roll 2 or greater, it would enter into South Vietnam. Rolled a 5, so that's enough. It'll be able to select any of those regions that it chooses to move into. We'll move intoIen Giang, I think. And we'll continue rolling for these other units. 6. 1 and then 2, 3, it would allow it to move in. He'll move in with that artillery unit. Next veteran unit, a 3. 1, 2, and it doesn't have enough to get off the trail, so it'll stay there. That is all of the forces that it has. That spends all of the remaining RPs for the north. And we'll move back to South Vietnamese forces and their U.S. allies. All right, the allied player is up next, and I'm not necessarily selecting the card just for its resource points. I'm also examining which of the events might be useful for us. This card here, Firebase Zulu, would be very effective in I Corps. We could put that into Quang Tri, and that would prevent those North Vietnamese units from coming down from North Vietnam. It would help to. It gives us a fire base, and we would subtract 2 factors from all enemy attacks in that province. The marker would be removed when there's no friendly units present, so that would be a good one. I think we'll play that last. I'm going to play Full Metal Jacket. It's going to give us 4 resource points, and I'm going to take advantage of the Nguyen Van Thieu card we have, which will prevent us from having a coup to this turn. I'm going to try to more aggressively use our ARVN forces. It'll be the casualty rates won't be as big a consideration that we won't be going into that coup. So let's take a look at what we've got on the board. Well, I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 1 resource point in Thua Thien, and we're going to attempt to pacify that location. We have a U.S. Army unit, so what we do is we add up the total units and roll a die. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we include all the units, including the support units. So all we need to do is roll a 5 or less, and that will be a success in pacifying that province. And that's an important one. That's Hue is in there. So here's the roll. Rolled a 2, so we are successful, and we're able to mark that with a pacification marker. Now that marker will remain in that location until all of the forces in that province are moved out or eliminated. So pacification is very effective for us once we get it. I think for our next action I'm going to spend an RP, and we're going to activate Long Con Province. We have a total of 3 untried ARVN units, and we're going to move them into Phuc Long. And now we're going to have to make a roll to see if that VC is going to attempt to ambush us. So we're going to make a roll there, and that'll be a bot roll. If it's even result, they will ambush. It is not. So the force will not ambush. And I think what we're going to do is I'm going to spend another RP, and we're going to combat that VC unit. It's going to attempt to evade. The VC will always attempt to evade when there are more than one unit against them. So we'll have to flip the VC unit and find out its strength. And it is a standard VC battalion. So we're going to make a roll on the evasion table. And this is a VC turned up, so that will be the column we'll use. The roll is a 2, and there's no effect. So now we're going to have a battle. So the VC have a strength of 1. Our Arvin forces have a strength of 3. And we're going to add a die roll to that to resolve the combat. Okay, here's the roll. And those are our results. Total combat value for the VC is 6 and 7 for the Arvin forces. So let's see what the casualties are. VC have a total of 6. So we're looking on the red column to the 6th row, and that's going to be an R. And it says target must either lose an RP or 1 SRP to eliminate one unit. Well, we're going to spend the SRP. So I'll deduct our 1 SRP from our total. We're down to 0. And that will prevent the Arvin casualty. Now the Arvin forces have a total of 7. We're looking on the blue column, and that's 1. So that is going to eliminate the VC. That is put back into the VC Cup, and we are now the lone force in Phuc Long province. And I'm going to spend my final resource point, and since those are Arvin forces, we're automatically going to convert that province, and the VC have lost control of Phuc Long. And that is all of our resource points. We're going to place the Full Metal Jacket card on the discard pile. And now it's the red bot's turn. We're going to play that card we had from last time. That's the we got to get out of this place. And one more card, and we're going to choose the greater of the 2. Now these 2 are tied, so we play the second card. First card gets flipped over, and they're playing General Uprising. The North believed the people in the South would rise up against the RVN, the Republic of Vietnam. All right, that's going to give them a total of 3 resource points. So we will give them 3 resource points to spend. And then we'll go through the bot sequence. There are no units in North Vietnam, so we'll be going to option 1 and rolling a die to find out what they're going to do. The result is odd, and that says spend 1 RP to move the largest bot unit concentration to attack the weakest blue concentration of units within reach. If necessary, use a bot decision. All right. Well, the largest bot concentrations are located in Tuy Huo and Kian Giang. So we're going to make a roll for those 2, and we'll see which one of those will be activating. That'll be a 1, 2, or 3, and this will be a 4, 5, or 6. Okay, it's going to be the Kian Giang province, and they are going to activate. So we're going to spend 1 RP to activate those forces in Kian Giang. That is a veteran NVA along with a artillery unit, I believe. Yes. All right, they're going to find the smallest enemy concentration within range, and that's this 3 Arvin in Phuc Long province. So we're going to move them. They have a movement of 4. If we can grab them. And they're going to move 1, 2, 3, and 4 into Phuc Long, where they're going to launch an attack. So the force values are 4 for the North Vietnamese and 3 for the South, and we're going to draw a random response card for each side, and we'll see what we get. This will be the Arvin card. Once again, these are playable if it is a combat related. Dinky Dow. Slang for to be crazy. Add +1 or -1 to any die roll you make after you see the result. You may not alter Bush events. Okay, so that's a valid card. Now we'll draw the card for the North Vietnamese Army. Let's see what they get. And their card is Nguyen Cao Kai. Vice President of South Vietnam until 1971, struggled with President Nguyen Van Thieu for power, dividing the country. Played during the ARVN stability check. Okay, well that will not be able to be used because that's not a combat card, so we will discard that and we'll move on to resolving the combat phase. Now once again, our ARVN forces could have retreated, or evaded rather. They could have tried to evade, but I'm going to bring the North Vietnamese to battle. We'll see what happens. Okay, here is the roll. And those are the results. All right, let's take care of the ARVN forces. They have a total of 3, 4, and we're able to add 1 to any dice roll we make after you see the results. Well, we'll add 1 to that. That'll make it 5. So 5 on the blue is an R result. And that is the target must either lose an RP or 1 saved RP or eliminate a unit. Well, they have really not much of a choice. They're going to have to eliminate their North Vietnamese artillery unit because that can't exist by itself too easily. So that'll go into the body count bag. Now for the red forces, they rolled a total of 6. And on the red column, that is an R result. I have no saved resource points, so we'll have to take a casualty. And we'll take an ARVN unit. And now we can do our promotions. And we're able to promote 1 unit for each enemy unit that was present at the time of the battle. North Vietnam had a total of 2 units at the start of the battle, so we're going to be able to promote both of those ARVN units to veteran, which is outstanding. All right. And then that Dinky Dow card will be put back into the response deck. All right, the red player has RPs left. He has 2 of them, so we'll move on now to number 2 and roll a die. The result is odd, and that says spend 1 RP to conduct an attack in Cambodia or Laos. Bot decision. The odds would be equal. Well, they won't be because the nationalist forces in Laos are greater than the communist forces. So we'll continue on with another roll on number 3. And that is an even roll. It says spend an RP to activate 2 provinces on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Units in the province move as separate groups, first into empty South Vietnamese provinces, or if not available, into the nearest provinces containing other friendly units. All right. Well, unfortunately for North Vietnam, there's only 1 unit on the trail. It's a veteran unit. We're going to spend the 1 RP, and then we're able to move that into a vacant province. And I think they'll move that into Kiên Giang. Makes the most sense. All right, they have 1 RP remaining, so they'll continue rolling now. And this will be in the number 4 results. Okay, and here is the roll. And that is an odd result. So we'll read odd for number 4. And that is spend all RPs to move North Vietnamese Army units outside of North Vietnam along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, as well as units located on the trail. Well, they don't have any of those. So I guess in this case, we would just continue on and roll another die. There's nothing to spend there. The other option I could do is spend that last point as a saved resource point. I think that might be the best. So we're going to spend that last RP that they have, and we'll move the North Vietnamese forces, their stored resource points, up to 3. One thing I noticed with the bot is you use the bot to the greatest extent that you can, but if there is a result that doesn't make any sense, I tend to overrule it and then do something that would be in line with what a human player would do. So for the most part, I let the bot do its job, but there are times where we have to overrule that, and I wouldn't have any problems doing that because you're just trying to make the bot a little stronger than it is on paper. All right, so that is going to complete all 4 actions for North Vietnam. That General Uprising card will be put into the discard pile. And we'll have 1 more Allied turn, and then we're going to go to an interphase of 1965-66. All right, the Allied player has 2 cards left. We're going to play the Firebase Zulu card. That's going to net us a total of 3 RPs. And I think right off the start, we're going to pay 1 RP and do that event. I think that's a good one. It says put the Firebase marker in any province with friendly units, and that's going to subtract 2 factors from all enemy attacks in that province. Remove the marker when no friendly units are present. And I think we're going to use Firebase Zulu up in Icor, and I think in Quang Tri. So we're going to place the Firebase marker in Quang Tri. That's going to be a -2 when it's attacked by enemy forces. Now we still have 2 RPs left, and I'm going to continue on with our mission of kind of taking back more of the provinces around South Vietnam. I think the first thing I'm going to do is spend an RP, and we're going to attempt to pacify Pleiku. We'll see if we can do that. There are no enemy forces there, and we do have a U.S. unit, so we're going to add up the total units and then hopefully roll less than that. So we have a total of 3. If we can roll 3 or less, we'll be able to pacify Pleiku. And unfortunately, we failed. We need some more forces there, I think. And I think for our last resource point, I'm going to spend that to activate Quang Hoa province in 4th Corps. We're going to activate those forces. There's a U.S. untried regiment and 3 regiments of Arvin. So we're going to have them move into Long Con and into Quang Phong. Now we can drop off units as we move. Now I'm going to have to roll for the Arvin forces, and the U.S. unit and the Arvin forces are going to move through Long An into Quang Phong. So we'll make the roll to see if the Arvin forces make the trip. They have to get at least a 2. Okay, here's the roll. And the result is a 2, so they have enough movement points to do it. So that force is going to move through Long An. And I could leave a Arvin unit there behind, and that would help in efforts to not pacify, but to control those forces. But I think we'll do the whole force into Quang Phong. Now we have to make a roll to see if the VC units will conduct an ambush. So we'll make a bot roll for the VC. The result is even, and they are going to ambush that force, and it is a VC battalion. So we're going to make a roll on the VC ambush and raid table using the standard VC column, and we'll see what happens. Roll is a 5, and that is D, defending unit eliminated. So we'll have to eliminate one of our units here, and we'll obviously eliminate one of the Arvin forces and add that to the body count box. All right, that is the extent of all of our resource points for the turn and for the end of 1965. So we're going to move on now to the Firebase Zulu card will be put into the discard, and then we're going to move into the interface, and you will see how that operates. Now, the interface is where we're going to calculate and adjust our political will. Currently, our political will is at 9 Hawks, which is strongly pro-US. We start out with scoring any grand campaign cards that would be played. We didn't have any of those, but if they did, we would score the effects of that. Next is we would check for collapse in Laos or Cambodia, and we could pay, if our faction collapsed, 3 SRPs to avoid the collapse. That did not occur. Now we're going to adjust the political will on the game track. And if this were 1969 or later, 1 dove would automatically come in. They'll also gain 1 dove for every U.S., international force, or ROC blue-colored units in the body count bag. Fortunately for us, there are no blue units in the body count box. And it says +1 dove if the body count box, the number of red units, is equal to or less than the number of blue. And in this case, that is not true. There would be 0 blue, but there's a total of 7 red units in there. So they're going to get no help from that. Next, we're going to count the red flagged provinces in South Vietnam, and that will give the North a bonus. Well, there are a total of 7 provinces that are VC or NVA controlled. And on the chart it says that we will add doves. For 7 to 8, 1 dove will be added. So that's going to move the hawk marker from -10 to -9. Now remember, hawks are considered negative points, so in reality we would be at -10. Doves are considered positive points, so we'll give them 1 dove, which would be moving our hawk down from 10 down to 9. Now we're going to check for RVN stability. Now we have a card that we played, and that is the Nguyen Van Thieu card, and that says that there cannot be a coup this year. So we'll go through this procedure just to show you how it would work. And what we do is we look at the number of pacified provinces in South Vietnam. We have 2, one in Saigon and one in Tao Thien in I Corps. So that gives us a total of 2 on the RVN stability track. And from that, we're going to subtract the number of ARVN units that are in the body count bag or box. There's a total of 3 in there. So we have a total of 3 ARVN units in the body count box. So the difference would be 2 minus 3 is -1. So we would have to spend 1 stored resource point to avoid RVN going into a coup. And in this case, though, we have the Nguyen Van Thieu card, which prevents a coup. So we don't have to worry about it, but that's how it would work. So that you can see the advantage of us pacifying these provinces and trying to keep our ARVN and U.S. casualties down, at the same time inflicting as many casualties to the VC and to the North Vietnamese Army. And finally, we get to check for victory. And if we had an auto victory in the end of 1965, it would be -7. Well, we're at -9. And that's interesting. Now, our auto win would have to be equal to or less than -13. So we're short of that. For the red to have an auto win, it would have to be a 1 or greater dove. So they're quite a bit of ways from that. But our endgame goal is -7. So if the game was to end here, the South would be winning. We'd have -9. But we're playing till 1966. So we're going to move on now to the next year's turn. And we're going to begin the next turn with our reinforcement phase. In 1966, the North Vietnamese Army will get 5 regiments that will become available to them. Those have to be placed in North Vietnam. Now, 1 unit may be placed in Camp Pot if Sihanoukville is open. It is open starting in 1965. So we can do that, and I think they would take advantage of that. So the North Vietnamese are going to place 1 in that port that is considered to be in Camp Pot province. They'll place that there. The other 4 are going to be placed in North Vietnam. And so we'll place those 4 regiments in North Vietnam. That'll be the NVA reinforcements. We'll move on to the Allied reinforcements. Now the Allies have quite a bit of reinforcements. Now you'll remember from the turn, those forces that were in, I believe, in Darlac were put off board. They were recalled to South Vietnam, Saigon capital. So those forces will reemerge during the reinforcement phase. U.S. forces have to be placed in a friendly base free of red units. That'll be our first priority. And we have several of those. I think what we're going to do is try to pepper the board on these U.S. bases with at least 1 U.S. unit. We'll put 1 in Con Hoa, and we'll put 1 in Quang Nam, and another one in Can Hoa, one in Long Can, and I think another one in Pleiku. That'll be a total of 4 units there. That's no problem. And now, well, we have some extra units here. We've got a U.S. artillery unit and a U.S. armor unit. Now, the armor cannot be placed in 4th Corps. It's very swampy territory around the Mekong Delta, and armor wouldn't operate very well there. So I think what we will do is I'm going to place the armor in Can Hoa and the artillery unit in Pleiku. We can have as many of the supporting factors as we want, one of each. Now we have some SVN untried. All the units come in untried, by the way, unless specifically said otherwise. Now the SVN units can be placed in any friendly province free of red units. So we'll probably try to bring these forces up that we have in Can Hoa up to a maximum of 4 infantry units with the support. And I think I'll try the same up in Quang Nam in I Corps. And that will, the more power we have, more firepower we have, the safer it is for our units. So we want to try to do that if at all possible. Single units are kind of easily overrun. Then we also have a bomber unit, and it's going to give us another bomber unit to add to our air base. Now we can refuel our bombers. We're going to have 2 bomber units available for this 1966 season. And now I slightly did the reinforcement phase out of sequence. What we should have done is the players should have collected bonus resource points, which they add to their stockpiles. Each player receives 2 RPs. So the North would be moved up from 3 to 5, and the U.S. and ARVN forces would move up to 2. Then, if this was 1968, the red player would receive 1 additional resource point, and the blue player would receive 1 resource point every year that the political will is a hawk. Well, we have a hawk, so we're going to gain an extra one. All right, so we're up to 4. Now we move all the units from the body count box to the dead pool, with a few exceptions. We're supposed to put all the VC units into the VC pool. Now I noticed that I forgot to, I placed it, when we killed a VC unit, it should have gone to the body count box. I put it into the pool, so it won't matter, but it should be there, and that could have affected a count when we were doing our values. So it's important that we put any VC units that we destroy into the body count box. The bad intel does not go there. It goes instantly into the cup. All right, so all these forces get moved over to the dead pool, and these can act as replacements, and we're able to purchase these with our RPs. Now each side is going to receive a few replacements from the dead pool for free. A player must pay RPs if he wishes to take more. Players receive the following free replacements from the dead pool. The NVA are going to get 8 units. So these are all going to be put into untried, and they're going to get 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only 7 in there, so they're going to get all these back. The VC unit goes into the cup now. And the ARVN will get 5 units, so they're going to get all 3 of these back. We had pretty light casualties in that first year. Also, 1 U.S. ROC or international force unit would be reclaimed, and all Pathet Lao, Khmer Rouge, and Cambodian and Laotian units would come back. All units in the dead pool are eligible, including air naval assets. Players can buy additional units from the dead pool for 1 stockpile RP each. All infantry replacements are untried. Players may not take or buy the opponent's units. All right, so we're going to place these units now on the map. Now the North Vietnamese units have to go into North Vietnam, and when North Vietnam is activated in a 2-player game, it activates only a stack of 4 out of whatever's in there. You can only activate 4 at a time. But it's slightly different in the solitaire rules. The bot might sometimes move the whole group at a cost of 1 RP. So they've placed those extra untried units in North Vietnam. Those additional ARVN units I'm going to place with these US units to help kind of guard their casualties. So we'll place one in Long Con, one in Quien Hoa. We have one left, and I think we'll place that in Saigon. That would give us a total of 4 infantry units and, yes, 4 infantry units and a SVN artillery unit. Okay, that finishes the reinforcement phase, and we're ready to get going now with the next year's turn. Now, the Allies had 1 card remaining from last year. We're always dealt 5 cards, and we're always going to play 4 cards per year, so you always have 1 card remaining. Now, for the Allies, they're going to keep that card, and we'll just supplement that with 4 additional cards. For the North, they're going to discard their additional card, and they will draw 5 fresh cards. So we're going to be drawing 4 to supplement our total. We have Green Berets, In Country, McNamara's Fence, and the Sante Prison Camp. All right, those will be the cards we have available to us for 1966. Now for the North, the card that they had left over from last year is discarded. That goes to the discard pile, and we would draw 5 new fresh cards. But before we do that, we have to make a bot roll to determine if the North is going to be placing a campaign card into their draw deck. So we're going to make a bot roll and see if it's a yes or no. Result is odd, so it'll be a no. They will not choose to do that. And they're going to draw out 5 cards face down to form their draw deck for 1966. All right, those are the 5 cards, and we'll find out what they are when we start the turn. North Vietnam will begin by drawing 2 cards from their 5-card hand. We're going to play the highest value. First card is Out Country. Second one is Didi Mao. Values are tied, so we're going to play the second card. So the Out Country card is flipped over, and North Vietnam will play Didi Mao, and that is slang for move quickly. So they're going to have 3 resource points with which to spend during the turn. And we're going to begin the turn by checking the red bot sheet, and we're going to look in North Vietnam to see if it contains any units, and it does. So we're going to make a bot roll and find out what they're going to do with those North Vietnamese units. The roll is even, and we'll see what that says. It says spend 1 RP to move up to 4 infantry units and 1 support unit from North Vietnam into Quang Tri. Excess units will move down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Roll a die to see how many provinces they move. When movement causes overstacking, move the unit 1 additional province. If no units are located in North Vietnam, go to 1. Well, there are. So the first action is to spend 1 RP. And we're going to move up to 4 North Vietnamese Army units into Quang Tri and an artillery unit. So they're going to move this stack of 4 units. They're going to be, I think, outnumbered, but they're in Quang Tri along with a artillery unit. The other units in North Vietnam are going to be rolled for and moved down the path of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I'll make those rolls off camera. All right, so the North Vietnamese units moved down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Now North Vietnam still has 2 resource points left, so they're going to consult number 1 and roll a die. The result is odd, and we're going to spend 1 RP to move the largest bot unit concentration to attack the weakest blue concentration of units within reach. Well, definitely the largest concentration are those that we moved into Quang Tri. So we have to find the Now, I have to be careful with this. I think I missed this in the previous turn. It says the largest bot unit concentration to attack the weakest blue concentration. So we're looking just for blue units here. This would be 4 in Quang Tri, 4 in Thao Thien, and only 1 in Quang Nam. So I think that's going to be their target. So that those forces are going to move. They have 4 movement points. Now we have to spend an extra movement point to move through a province with a veteran unit. So it'll be a total of 1, 2, and 3, and they're going to move into Quang Nam. So our force values are 6 on NVA against 4 Arvin and US Untried. Now we're going to draw our response cards and see if there is a combat card that can be played. We'll draw for the Allied forces, and their card is Mad Minute. Red may not play this event on his first turn during the Tet or Easter offensive. After you play a card for your turn, play this card to add +2 RPs to your first card's RP value. Okay, that one won't apply. It does not have a combat effect on the situation. We'll see what happens with the North Vietnamese. And their card is Boondoggle. Play after a battle dice are rolled. If blue takes casualties, at least one must be a U.S. international force or Republic of Korea infantry or artillery. Okay, that will apply. All right, now we just roll our combat dice and add that to the totals and find out what happens. All right, blue have a 6 and the red have a 4. All right, so each side scored 10 points. We'll check the battle table. We'll start with the red. Red has scored a total of 10, and that's going to inflict 1 casualty on the Allied forces. Now with the Boondoggle card, at least one of the casualties has to be a U.S. force, so that means that this untried U.S. unit is going to go to the body count box. Now we have a total of 10 for blue, and that's going to give a result of 1R. So that is going to remove 1 NVA, and they will not pay for that other one, so they're going to lose another unit there. Those 2 units will go to the body count box. And now we do our field promotions. North Vietnam had a total of 5 units, so we'd be able to promote 5, and all of these Arvin units are going to be promoted, which is a good thing for us. That's what we're trying to do, is Vietnamization, where we're trying to get South Vietnam to be self-sustaining. And the same thing will happen for the North Vietnamese forces. They can promote both of their surviving units to veteran status. All right. The North has 1 RP remaining plus their stored resource points, so we'll make a roll, and now we're going to be looking at table number 2. The roll is odd, and that says spend an RP to conduct an attack in Cambodia or Laos, and we have to have odds equal to or greater for the bot. Well, that won't happen, so we're going to continue on. We'll roll again on number 3, and we have another odd result. It says spend an RP to attempt political control in 1 or 2 provinces where the odds of success would be the most likely. All right, we'll check the board out and see where that is. I just realized something. During the reinforcement phase, I forgot a step again, and I apologize. Red should have deployed a VC unit from the VC pool, and if Tet has not occurred, and Red has less than 10 VC units in play, he draws and deploys a second one. So that's what we'll do. Currently there are 8 VC units on the board, so we're going to place 1 randomly in provinces that we're able to. In this case, Quang Duc is a good position that has a control marker there. And we can place 1 in, now in the solo game, The VC are able to place, normally you can only place them under controlled spaces or on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, but in the solo game it allows you to place them in even enemy controlled locations. So we've already got a VC in every political control area that we have, so we can place them in an enemy controlled area as well. And I think they will place that in I checked the rules regarding the VC placement. It says if the bot is red, use a bot decision to choose a random placement. VC reinforcements arrive in a random province which has no current VC unit and is adjacent to a red controlled province, or a province bordering Cambodia or Laos. Otherwise, it would arrive in a random province containing the fewest US or ARVN units. So I think we are going to place that in a vacant province, and that'll be in An Loc in Bin Long province. All right. And I think they're going to spend that RP in Bin Long province, and they're going to convert that. The VC automatically convert the province to their side, just like the South Vietnamese units. And Bin Long now becomes VC controlled. That's going to end the first card for the red player. We'll move on to the blue. And these are the cards we have available to us. We've done a pretty good job in the first year, but we're starting off kind of rough. We've already got a US unit in the body count box. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to play this Green Berets card. It says Green Berets specialized in counter-guerrilla training and security. Now the event there is it costs 2 RPs. Promote an ARVN unit to veteran in every province containing US and ARVN units. And that's a pretty good card. So that's going to give us a total of 4 points. And I think we're going to use that event. We're going to spend the 2 RPs. And that will allow us to promote the ARVN units in every province with US and ARVN units in them. All right. So we've got one in Quien Hoa, can be promoted. There's also one in Quien Phong. There are US units in Saigon. We can promote one of those there. Pretty good card. There's one in Long Con, which can be promoted. And we've also got one in Quien Hoa, which can be promoted. And I don't know if there's any more here. Yeah, it's veteran already. Let's check it up in I-Corps, see if there's any units up there. Those are all there. Yeah, Thiao Thien, there's US units there. We can promote one of the ARVN units there. And Quang Tri, now that's only a support unit. Let me check on that to see if it says anything about that. In every province containing US and ARVN units. Okay. Well, the definition of a unit by the rulebook says all pieces that move and defend in the game are units. All right, well, I'm going to have to research that a little bit more and see with support units. I'm pretty sure they can defend. I'm going to check. And it does say units are either infantry or assets, so they are considered units. So we will be able to promote that one ARVN unit in Quang Tri. And we'll promote another ARVN unit here in Quang Tri. That was a pretty good card for us. All right. Now we have 2 resource points left. We have 3 SRPs on the game track, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend one of those to increase our SRPs by 1. If we do have a coup attempt, we want to make sure we have enough SRPs to pay for this, because that could definitely kill us in this final year of the game. So I'm going to spend one of our points and increase our SRPs up to 4. We have 1 left. And I think I'm going to spend this final resource point to activate our forces in Quien Hoa. And we're going to make an attack. Well, we can move them in at least. So I think I will do that. We'll activate Canhua, and we're going to move in. There are already 3 units there. We'll move in a U.S. unit and be supported with the tank units. It's not an attack because it's just movement, so to pay for the attack separately. Now we still have 3 units in Canhua, but I don't know if I want to necessarily move those. I guess we could and try to clear out this nest of VC that are in Ninthuan. I don't know. I'm going to think about that. I think I'd probably prefer to move those units into Darlok, so we're going to do that. And that is going to be the extent of our Green Berets card. That will go on to the discard pile, and we'll move back to the North. So the North will play the card that they did not play last time, Out Country, and a new card, which is Whispering Death. Whispering Death will be the card because that is a higher value. So we'll turn over the Out of Country, and they're going to gain a total of 4 resource points for actions this turn, and we'll mark that accordingly. Now this Whispering Death card, I seem to remember that there is a different cost on this during solo play. I'm going to look that up. Yeah, it says here, for solitaire purposes, Whispering Death costs the bot 2 RPs instead of 3 for you and the bot. The bot is allowed to spend 1 SRP card, so if the bot is left with 0, he has an SRP to spend. An additional card action may be purchased. All right. There are no units in North Vietnam, so we're going to make a roll, and starting with number 1 in the sequence, and see what the North does. That is an odd result, and that says spend an RP to move the largest bot unit concentration to attack the weakest blue concentration within reach. All right. Well, our largest bot concentration is in Quang Nam. 2 veteran units and an NVA artillery unit. The weakest blue concentration is in Quang Tri with the fire base, so that's where they're going to have to go. They'll move 1 into Thua Thien. They'll pay an extra point for the veteran that's there and move into Quang Tri. And there they're going to launch an attack, I believe. So those are our unit strengths, 6 for the North Vietnamese and 10 for the Allies. Now, they have a fire base. That's going to reduce their firepower by 2, so that actually drops them down to 4, which is even worse. All right, now we're going to draw our response cards, and we'll start with the ARVN and U.S. forces. They draw a card, the Dinky Dow card. They can add 1 or subtract 1 to any die roll that they make after they see the result, so that is a valid card. Let me put that in the view of the camera if I can. Okay, now we're going to draw a card for the North Vietnamese, and we'll see if they can get something. And their card is the Boondoggle card, which we've seen before. Both of those are going to be active. All right, we are going to make our combat rolls and see what the results are. Okay. U.S. has a total of 11, and the North Vietnamese Army has 7. So let's take a look at the casualties. Red has a 7, which is going to have a result of 1 casualty. Their Boondoggle card says play after battle dice are rolled. Blue takes casualties. 1 unit must be U.S., international forces, or ROC infantry or artillery. Well, they don't have any of those forces there, so that card won't apply actually. There are no U.S. infantry units in Quang Tri, and there are no ROC Marines or artillery. So it'll have to be a standard casualty, and they'll take a untried ARVN unit, I believe. We'll place that in the body count box. The ARVN forces have a total of 11, and that is going to inflict 2 casualties on North Vietnam. So they're going to take the artillery unit and one of their veteran units, and those are going to go to the body count box. All right. That will complete the battle. Now this Dinky Dow card, we could have added 1 to that result. That would have made that a 2. That's 12. Would that have changed the result? No, it still would be a 2. All right, that is the extent of the battle. We'll place these cards back, and that'll end the battle. All right, North Vietnam still has 3 RPs remaining, so they're going to roll on the table under the number 2. Result is even. And that says buy and conduct the event printed on the card. If RPs remain, go to number 3. So they're going to play this Whispering Death card that they have, which is their active card. Now we know that from that they can purchase it for 2 points, and the red cost will be 2, so they'll spend 2 RPs for that. And that says B-52s destroy a friendly hamlet. Place a red flag in any one SVN province. Remove the blue flag if it is pacified. Well, I would think then that they would want to do that in a pacified area. And that looks like it would be in Thiao Thien. So that's probably what we'll do. Let's double check that. B-52s destroy a friendly hamlet. Place a red flag in any one SVN province. Remove the blue flag if it is pacified. That's what they're going to do. That was a big hit to us. All right. And the North still has 1. I apologize for that. I ran out of battery power. So the North still has 1 point remaining, so they're going to be rolling to see what they're going to do with that 1 point. And we'll be using chart number 3. That is an odd result. It says spend an RP to attempt political control in 1 or 2 provinces where the odds of success are the most likely. All right. Well, the only province that they have available to themselves to attempt this is in Kiangyang, and that's a NVA unit, so there's 1 unit there. We would have to roll a 1 for it to be successful, so we'll give it a try. They rolled a 4, so that's a failure, and that will be all of the points from the Whispering Death card that they played. That will be placed on the discard pile, and we'll move on to the US and ARVN forces. And I think we're going to play this in-country card. That is going to give us a total of 3 resource points. And the special ability says you may attack once for free in every mountain province this turn. All right. And the country says in-country. Ain't no use in going home. Jody's got your girl and gone. Sound off. Okay. Well, we get free attacks in the mountain provinces. So I think what we're going to do is we'll start out with an attack in the Darlak province. We have a veteran and 2 untried ARVN units against a VC untried unit. So since the attack is free, we'll use it. But that NVA unit is going to attempt to evade. When a single unit is outnumbered, it attempts to evade. So we have a 1 unit on the evasion. We'll make the roll. Roll is a 2, and that has no effect. So we are going to have a battle there. So the ARVN forces have a total of 4, and the NVA has a total of 1. We'll draw our response cards. This one will be for the ARVN forces. And they get, I feel like I'm fixin' to die rag. All right, play before battle dice are rolled. Both players move down 1 row. Deadlier result on the battle table. All that would apply, so that is a valid card. Now we'll draw the North's card. And they get the card Elephant Grass. Play if an allied ground unit moves, retreats, or reacts into a province with a veteran NVA unit. Now that one does not apply. So that will go back, and we're going to make the roll now for the combat. We're going to be using 1 row deadlier on the battle table. Okay. Both sides have a total of 6, so we'll see what happens. Now that's going to be up 1 column from where it normally would be. We'll start out with the Arvan forces. And they have a total of 6. We'll move up a column. It's going to inflict 1 point of damage on the North Vietnamese forces, so that's been wiped out. North Vietnam has a 6 on the red. That'll move them up 1 column, and they will also inflict 1 point of damage, and that's going to take out a untried Arvan unit. We'll place that in the body count. Now we're able to promote, and we can promote one of those untried units to a veteran. That's going to complete the battle. Now we're able to reinforce if we choose to. Since we have survived the battle, we can reinforce that province with units from the adjoining provinces. And I think that might be a good idea. I think we'll send in a untried U.S. unit into that province as a reinforcement. And I think that's going to be it. We'll leave it at that. And now we're going to spend our first point, and I think we're going to, well, I think I'm going to do this first. I'm going to get our B-52 force out, and they're going to attempt to bomb these NVA units in Tuy Hoa. There's 2 units in there, and we'll have them roll a die and see what happens on the bombing table. Okay, here's the roll. Roll is a 5, and that is a miss, so that force is spent. We have 1 bomber remaining. I think I'll keep that in reserve. I'm going to use one of our RP points, and we're going to activate this force in Tuy Hoa. And they have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the armor. And the VC have or I should say the NVA have a total of 3. Well, they're more than a single unit, so they would stick it out. They will have a value of 3, and we have a total of 6. All right, that's our totals. And now we will attempt our response deck again. Draw a card for the U.S. and Arvan forces, and they get that same card. That means it's going to increase the combat to make it deadlier. And now we'll draw a card for the North Vietnamese. And they get the card RPG-7 Rocket Launcher. Play when a tank or air cav is in a battle and you kill at least 1 allied unit. Blue must kill the tank or the air cav, your choice. Well, that is going to apply. There is armor involved in the battle. All right. So now we're going to make the rolls and see what happens. Okay, each side rolled a 2. So we'll take care of the North Vietnamese side first. They rolled a total of 5. 5 on the red column is no result. It's going to go up 1 column though, so that would be 6, and that result would be an R, and we'll pay the SRP to preserve our lost units, because if we end up losing a unit, we have to kill a tank unit, so we don't want to do that. All right, now we have a total of 8. On our blue is 1. We're going to move that up to 10, and that's a 1R. And that's going to eliminate 1 unit and another one, which they're not going to pay for. So we've cleared out. Tuy Hoa has been cleared out, and those forces go into the body count. All right, these cards are going to be put back in their respective decks. And we still have 2 points remaining. I think I'm going to pay 1 point to move up our SRPs again, moving that back up from 3 to 4. It leaves us with 1 resource point left. And I think we'll attempt pacification in Tuy Hoa. So we'll pay another point. We do have a U.S. unit, and our total units here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll succeed on anything except a 6, and we'll be able to pacify that province. And we did. So we're going to place a pacification marker there, and that's great. All right. That uses up our in-country card. It'll go to the discard pile. And now we'll be making the third card play for the turn for the North. The North will play the card it did not play last time. That's the out country, and its new card is Vo Nguyen Giap. And that was the most prominent military commander besides Ho Chi Minh himself. And that's going to get him a total of 5 resource points. All right, we'll see what they're going to do. All right, there are no units in North Vietnam, so we'll be making our roll on number 1 of the table. And that is an odd result. And it says spend an RP to move the largest bot unit concentration to attack the weakest blue concentration. All right, let's see what we have. Well, the largest formation they have is this 2 untried NVA regiments in Savannah Ket. So we'll have to see what they can reach for the smallest blue concentration. Both of those are the same. I guess you would take the one that didn't have the fire base and attack there. So I guess that's what they'll do. They'll move 1, 2 for the veteran, and 3 into Thua Thien. That's what they're going to do. Looks like it's a little bit against the odds there. So that's going to cost them 1 of their resource points. And then we'll see what we've got for the battle here. There's going to be just a total of 2 for the North. And our other forces here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 for the ARVN and U.S. forces. So we'll place 9 there. And then we're going to draw our response cards. Okay, this will be the ARVN U.S. card. And they get Dinky Dow, which will allow them to add 1 or subtract 1 from the die roll. All right. And the North, let's see what they draw. And they get the card Nguyen Cao Kai. And that takes place during the RVN stability check, so that won't have any combat effects on it. So we will discard that card back to the response deck. And we'll fight the battle. And here's the roll. Okay, the U.S. ARVN have a total of 14. And the North Vietnamese have only 5. Now we can add 1 to our result. That would make that 15. And we'll see what the damage is. 3 units. Okay, that is going to completely wipe out the NVA forces. Those go to the body count box. The North, using the red, had only a total of 5, and they had nothing. So they did no damage to the Allied forces. It was amazing. All right, so we'll take these dice out, and the Dinky Dow card will be returned to the response deck for the Allied forces. Now the North still has 4 resource points remaining, and we'll see what they're going to do with those. Well, we definitely can see the limitations of the bot with an attack like that. We're definitely going to have to revise that bot and make it a little bit more competitive in the language. And I'm going to take care of that, I think, in the next coming months. All right, we're going to continue on. We have 4 resource points available, and we'll check on chart number 2 and see what the roll is. It's even. It says buy and conduct the event printed on the card. Well, that is the Vo Nguyen Giap card. And that costs 2 points, and it says in one battle round, roll 2 battle dice instead of 1 and add both to your battle factors. All right, well, they'll do that. They'll spend the 2, leaves them with 2 remaining. And we'll go on and continue with number 3 roll. That is an even. Spend an RP to activate 2 provinces along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Units in each province move as separate groups, first into empty South Vietnamese provinces, if none are available, into the nearest provinces containing other friendly units in South Vietnam. All right. Well, they're going to move this one that's in the south here, and they'll move that into An Giang. It's a empty province. And I think this next one here will move into Quang Ngai. That'll cost them 1 resource point. They have 1 remaining. And they'll make the roll on chart number 4. Result is even. Spend an RP to activate a province containing the most bot units. Move these to the nearest coastal province with the fewest blue units. All right. Well, once again, they don't have any concentrations of any. They're all single units. That's something we're going to have to work on in the redevelopment of the bot. Well, the largest concentration. All right. And they would have to go after a coastal province with the fewest blue units. It looks like it might be this group in 4th Corps. And I think what they'll do is they'll move that veteran unit in Kian Giang and move that into Kian Hua. It has only 1 blue unit in it. And that's going to complete all of their RPs. They didn't get to use the Giap card. Unfortunately, they made no attacks. And that card will go to the discard pile. We'll move on to the US player. And I guess we're going to play the McNamara's Fence card, a proposed barrier of mines and sensors designed to keep North Vietnamese troops out of South Vietnam. It'll get us a total of 4 RPs. And we'll see what we'll do with those. Well, we have to return our bomber unit to refuel in Guam. And we do have that bomber unit there. I think we're going to launch an attack on Kon Tum province. There's 2 units in there. And we'll make a roll on the bomber table for 2 units. That's a free attack. And here's the roll. Roll is a 6 with 2 units is no effect. So that will just disrupt their movement a little bit. All right. And I think we're going to spend 1 RP to activate our forces in Kien Phong. We're going to launch an attack on that VC unit. Now, the VC unit cannot ambush us. We have to move into the province for that to happen. So he's going to attempt an evasion. And we'll roll on the evasion table. Now, this is a VC down, so we'll see what happens. Here is his roll. Roll is a 6. 6 on VC down is success. The group may evade. So that will evade. And it's going to move into, I think, An Giang. Move there. All right, we have 3 resource points left. And let's see what we're going to do. I think we will activate Kien Phong, and we're going to attempt to convert that. There's no units in there. We have Arvin units there. That'll be automatic success, and we will put that back to SVN control. We have 2 points remaining. And we could try a pacification in that area. I think I will. We'll spend 1 point and attempt to pacify Kien Phong. We need to roll a 3 or less. And we're unsuccessful. We have 1 point remaining. And I think we'll try it again. I'll pay the 1 point, and we'll attempt to pacify Kien Phong. We failed again. I'm not doing too good on those rolls. I need to get more units in there. So the McNamara's Fence card has been played. That is the third card, and we'll move on to the last card for the North. North will play their card they didn't play last time. That's that out of country, and the other card is Hanoi Jane. Well, it's going to be the out of country card. Hanoi Jane is less. That'll get them a total of 3 RPs, and we'll see what they're going to do with the bot. And they're going to roll on number 1. There's no units in North Vietnam. That is an odd result, and it says spend an RP to move the largest bot unit concentration to attack the weakest blue concentration within reach. Well, once again, we don't have any combined forces anywhere. So the weakest one we could attack would be, I believe it's in Can Hoa. So they're going to move that force in An Yang and move that into Can Hoa and attempt an attack. All right. So the total forces there are 3 for red and 3 for blue at this moment. And then we're going to draw our response cards. Here is the red response card, and that's Dak Kong, NVA Special Commandos. Play in one battle before the battle dice are rolled. Roll your battle die and apply results before blue adds his. If played during the same battle as Search and Destroy, discard this card with no effect. Okay, well, we'll draw our blue response card now. And that card is China and the USSR. Wait, that's wrong. I took that out of the wrong deck. That was the actual, it's not a response card. That would have been our next card in the regular deck. The response card is Hearts and Minds. And that says play in the interphase, so that will not be used during the combat. We'll replace that. And now we're going to make our roll, and the NVA will attack first because of Dak Kong. All right, here's their roll. They rolled a 1, and that's a total of 4 only, and that will produce no results. Now the US will roll. And they rolled a total of 5. 5 on blue is an R result, and that is going to eliminate 1 NVA unit. That'll be the untried unit. That will finish that combat. And the Dak Kong card goes back to the deck, and North still has 1 RP or 2 RPs remaining. So we'll consult number 2 and make the roll. And he rolled even, and that says buy and conduct the event printed on the card, and that is the out country card. Let's see if that makes sense. Add +3 to your total battle factors in 1 battle round if you attack in Laos or Cambodia and at least 1 friendly Laos or Cambodian unit participates. Well, they're not going to be making any attacks there because they don't have the advantage, so I think we'll just pass on that. We'll make another roll and move on to number 3. That is even. Spend an RP to activate 2 provinces along the Ho Chi Minh Trail and move units in each province separately in groups into empty South Vietnamese provinces. All right. Well, there's 3 units on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, so I guess we will just make a roll, bot roll, to determine which ones are going to move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's going to be the one in Saravan, and that will attempt to get into, I guess, Quang Tin. 1 and 2. All right, and now we have 50-50 here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that'll be the one in Mando Kari. And I think they'll try to get into Phu Ban province. there are veterans in there, so 1, 2 for the veteran, and 3 into Fubon. All right. The North has 1 point left, so we'll move on to number 4 and make the roll. It's an odd one. Spend all RPs to move all NVA units outside of North Vietnam south along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Well, they'll do that. They've only got 1 unit there, and here's its roll. 5 provinces. 1, 2, 3, 4, and not enough to leave the trail. So that will end the North's play of the cards. That's their last card for the turn. Yeah, I'm definitely starting to see the limitations of that bot. We're going to have to do something about that. And the U.S. has 2 cards remaining, and this will be the final card for 1966. And I guess we'll play the Son Tay Prison Camp. That'll be worth 3 resource points. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to spend 1 point to activate some forces in Saigon. And I think we're going to move in a veteran ARVN unit into Quien Phong. That'll be 1 and 2. So if we can get a 2-point movement roll, we'll be okay to move that ARVN force. And we did not. It only moved 1 province, so it's going to be stuck in Long An instead. Trying to get more forces in there to do a pacification roll. Well, I think what we'll do then is I'm going to activate Long Can province, and we'll activate both of those forces, and we'll make a move with the U.S. force into Quien Phong. 1, 2, and 3. The ARVN force can still move, and we'll see what we're going to do with that. And I think with this ARVN unit in Long Can, we're going to march that overland through Saigon, through Long An, and attempt to get it to Quien Phuc. You can march those things separately, and that would represent the units taking different paths, so it's not a problem. But what happens then is each unit can be ambushed separately. So we'll attempt to make the move to Quien Phuc. Here's the roll for movement. He has 5 points, so he's got plenty. 1, 2, and 3. I can't do that because there's already 4 units in that province. Well, then I'm going to move it into Quien Hoa. Do it that way. All right, we have 1 point remaining, and I think what we'll do is I'll do for 1 point, we'll attempt to pacify Quien Phuc. We have 4 units there. We need to roll 4 or less. And we did it. So we're able to place a pacification marker there, and that is great. That is the last point of the 1966 turn. We'll do our interphase and see who has won the game, and I'm pretty sure we have. All right, we begin the interface summary with scoring any grand campaign cards. None were played. There is no collapse in Laos or Cambodia. So we're going to adjust our political will on the track. A dove for every U.S. international force or ROC unit in the body count box. Well, we have 1, so that's going to move our Hawks down from 9 to 8. We're going to count our red flag provinces in South Vietnam. We have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So a total of 8. That is going to give them 1 dove, so that'll move the Hawks down to 7. All right, now we check our RVN stability. We subtract the pacified provinces from the ARVN units in the body count box. Well, we have a total of 1, 2, 3 pacified, and we have 2 ARVN units in the body count, so we're good. We don't have to pay anything. That is great. So we're going to check our victory conditions. It's 1966, and for us to get an auto win for blue, we'd have to have -10 or less. We don't have that. We've got a total of 7. So we're going to have to score this as the final score, and in 66 we have to have -3 or less. Otherwise the North will win. Well, we have a total of 7 Hawks. So the South Vietnamese and the U.S. allies have won the game. All right, I'll give you a recap of what I think. Well, I really enjoy the game. I think what we need to do in the short term until either I or someone else produces a more competitive bot for the non-player would be to play the game as you would as a two-player game and just make the best moves for the side that you're really not controlling. That would seem to be just fine. We could still use the card draw mechanism where we draw 2 cards and play the highest value. And the Viet Cong rules are fine. It does provide us with more opportunities to use that bush table when we're not knowing what the VC units are. But I think other than that, the game would play just fine by wearing 2 hats while you're playing. In the meantime, we might be able to develop a little bit better bot that'll make it a little stronger. So thank you so much for joining me at the Solo Gamers Club. I hope that this video was informative for you and maybe a little entertaining. This should be enough information for you to decide whether or not you'd like to have the game in your collection. I like it, and it's I've played Victory Games, Vietnam 65 to 75. I played that twice in the 1980s, playing the full campaign game, believe it or not. And that, I won't even tell you how many hours that took, but I did it. And in addition to that, I've already played Pacific War, Mark Herman's Pacific War. I played that twice in the campaign game solo, and that was unbelievable. At that time, I had a ping pong table, so I had plenty of space to set up that game with a large footprint like that. But it was very enjoyable, but I don't think I would do it again in my old age. So thanks for joining me at the channel, and I appreciate your likes and subscriptions. So until we meet next time, have a nice evening. Good night.